Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. With the Season 2 Reloaded update, obviously we got a decent amount of weapon tuning, and we saw some slight meta shifts here and there, including to the close range meta, especially with some of the Vanguard subs. We saw some pretty significant changes with what you want to use on your specific setups. And today we are going over what I believe to be are the top 5 best close range options in the game right now. As we break them all down, if you enjoy the video at any point, or if you find it helpful, let me know by dropping a like on it. And if you're new to the channel, or if you have not subscribed yet, every day I got you covered with all things going on in COD, news, updates, loadouts, tips. You're gonna find it all right here. So feel free to hit that sub button and turn on those post notifications. So first up, we cannot talk about close range weapons that are dominant and not mention the AS44. This thing's absurd. It has one of the best TTKs in the entire game, but this is a gun that takes a lot of time to master. It is not an easy gun to use by any means. High risk, high reward. You have to be able to really control recoil well if you want to find success with this thing, because while it has that insane TTK, it does not have insanely good recoil. The setup that we're using also is not really helping recoil, but what it is helping is that close range dominance. First up, I like to go for the recoil booster. It's going to help out the TTK even more. The fire rate on this thing is utterly insane, and it's just going to dominate for close range. Alongside that, I personally do like running the falchion barrel. It's better for fire rate yet again, so you're still helping that close range TTK even more. These other barrels on here really are not super ideal unless you're trying to build for like more medium range and even some long range based fights, which would be a completely different setup, so none of those are really great choices for close range. For an optic, I actually run the 2.5 times here, even though we are focused on close range, just because this does help out with control, and that zoom is not too much and too overwhelming for close range fights. It's still very easy to track players with that on there. Now, remove stock honestly is pretty good just for the mobility here. It's going to give you better movement speed and make it more competitive for close range. However, if you want to run something like the custom stock here, it is going to help out with more control, hurt your movement a little bit, but that's not something we can't gain back if we really wanted to. Honestly, this build in general is pretty fast paced for a rifle as is. For the underbarrel, I actually like using Carver here because this is primarily meant for vertical control. This gun has a lot of that. This also helps out with hip fire though, which is a good option to have here because for close range, especially with the gun that's got a fire rate like this, hip firing can be very, very useful. For the magazine option here, I'm still running with the Granco 50 just because this is going to be perfect for close range, and it's also helping out with that control a little bit while giving you that better movement and that better fire rate. It's really the perfect option for this specific build. For the ammo here, hollow point is no longer a great option. Incendiary is not really a great option. Armor piercing ain't it. FMJ is not worth it. Frangible ain't it. So it comes down between lengthened and subsonic. If you want to stay off the map, feel free to use subsonic. You are going to notice a slightly worse velocity though, and that could mess with your hit reg here and there. Lengthened is not really super useful in close range fights, but it also has no cons. So it's, as I've said many times before, sort of the lesser of all evils here. For the rear grip, we're definitely going for polymer for that better control. Perk 1, Gung Ho is a really, really good choice here because it's going to eliminate all that sprint-to-fire, and I love that. Because honestly, this setup doesn't focus too much on having a great sprint-to-fire stat. That eliminates all of that and makes everything else useless in terms of worse or better sprint-to-fire stats. So I love that. Perfect for an aggressive setup. And then perk 2, we are going for fully loaded. And like I said when we started talking about this gun, this is something you can't not mention if you're focused on close range. Now, another super dominant close range weapon right now, the Omen Gun, especially because the WEL Gun got some slight nerfs with the update. The Omen Gun has really solidified itself as that #1 top TTK SMG in the game at the moment. This could change in the future, but for now, this thing is still a beast. The setup here though really hasn't changed all that much. We're still going for the recoil booster alongside the rapid barrel, obviously getting the best TTK out of that yet again. For the optic, we're still running the Slate 2.5 times for that better red dot to get those magazines out of the way. Still going for the remove stock on here as well for that better movement, just to make it even more aggressive. Hand stop to help out with that control. The Granco 72 round drums for the better fire rate, the better control in there as well. Same deals with the AS44 here. You could definitely use subsonic if you didn't want to show up on the radar, or lengthened. They're both great options. The velocity on this is good enough that if you use subsonic, you won't notice too many drastic, negative gunfights there where you're like, oh, I lost that because my velocity wasn't as good as theirs. So you could definitely get away with using that if you wanted to. I just prefer to have lengthened on there. And honestly, I don't care if I show up on the map. I welcome the chaos. You can send at me. I'm going to have an Owen gun with a top tier TTK, and there's a good chance you're going to get fried, right? So I'll take lengthened all day, every day. For the rear grip, fabric is great for mobility. Polymer is great for control. It just depends on what you value more there. Perk 1, I go for acrobatic in this case, better movement, and then perk 2, quick, better mobility as well. Like I said, pretty much the same setup we've been running. Absolute beast as it stands. Now, yes, I did just say the WEL Gun got some slight nerfs with the Season 2 Reloaded update, but those nerfs did not make this gun that much worse. It is still frying. I've been using this a ton since the Season 2 Reloaded update, and it's probably still my favorite SMG in the game at the moment. It's got low recoil, a great TTK, great mobility, honestly even decent for some mid-range fights as well with this build that we have on here. So I'm loving this thing. It's such a fun gun to use. Recoil booster first up here, going for the shrouded barrel to help get some better control and some better range out of that. And surprisingly enough, because of the other attachments that we're using here, the mobility doesn't really lack all that much when we have a long barrel on there. Going for the slate reflector, basic red dot. Remove stock here is going to get a lot of that mobility back and basically cancel out the cons of the shrouded barrel. For the underbarrel, I go for hand stop. You could go for like the pistol grip or skeletal if you wanted to. I just prefer minimizing that recoil. I'm still running the Grenko 40. These got a slight nerf, but it really doesn't feel like it at all, so I'm still loving those. For the ammo here, subsonic I don't think is a choice. The velocity on the WEL gun is not good, so you have to have lengthen on there. I would not recommend subsonic in this particular case. For the rear grip, again, fabric would work perfectly well if you wanted that better speed. Polymer also does its job just fine. Perk 1, I'm still running with acrobatic just for that overall mobility, and perk 2, quick for more of the same. No real changes here, but it is still a top option. We also got to talk about the Lapa, one of the last few standing dominant Cold War subs, or I guess non-Vanguard subs in the game. This thing is still a beast. Its TTK really hasn't changed in months at this point, and it's one of the top TTKs for close range specifically, so we got to talk about that in this video as well, right? It is a Cold War gun though, so obviously only 5 attachments, and it's a very basic setup. Agency, rifled for the best TTK out of the barrel options. I like to go for the Tiger Team Spotlight. A lot of players also like to run maybe like a Raider stock or a combat stock. They're good options, but they also got some slight nerfs with the Pacific update a few months back, and ever since then I just really haven't been focused on those too much. You have to run a Microflex LED here because the iron sight sucks so much. Then I go for the 50 round mag on here as well. You could go with 40, but you are pushing that if you're playing Caldera with that increased health. For Rebirth, 40 could work. In general, though, I feel like 50 is not a bad choice whatsoever. So pretty much the same setup here as well, still doing work. And then lastly for this video, we got the Cooper Carbine. This thing really is not all that great past like 20 meters, but hey, we're talking close range. Within those 20 meters, the Cooper is pretty solid, especially if you build it out for close range in general. So like you could really make this an AR SMG sort of hybrid gun. First up, recoil booster is something obviously we talk about a ton in this video. I don't really think it's the go-to here. You could definitely try it and get that fire rate even more insane, but I don't necessarily think that's the best option. I really like Mercury in some cases because it is going to help out with the control and obviously keep you off the map, but to me, MX is the clear choice here. Better control all around. The ADS speed con there is not a super big deal, I don't feel like, so to me, MX is a solid choice for close range. For the barrel, Cooper Custom is not a bad choice either. Getting a better fire rate, which is obviously ideal, helping out with that TTK, also giving you better control, and it's really not slowing you down at all here either for close range. Obviously, a little bit worse sprint to fire, but that's not something you can't gain back, right? And the hip fire is not a huge deal. So I still run with Cooper Custom. You could definitely try the rapid barrel if you wanted to. The control is going to be a lot worse there though, but it will be very, very good for close range fights. For the optic here, really comes down to what you prefer. The slate reflector is honestly very good, as is the 2.5 times. If you like the Model 47, go with that. Sort of comes down to preference for that. For the stock, I feel like padded is always going to be the most consistent choice here, right? But for close range, maybe you want to run a skeletal and get that better movement, you could definitely do that, and it would not be a bad decision whatsoever. But with padded, getting that extra recoil control during sustained fire, like I said, never a bad idea. For the underbarrel here, I'm still going with hand stop. You'll see why in a moment, but control to me is really an important part of this setup, even if it's not max mobility, right? For the magazine, 9mm60 is going to be the most ideal for close range. Obviously, better fire rate, better ADS on there as well, making it even more aggressive. For the ammo, what we've got here is the compressed rounds, which help out with fire rate even more. Now, these are going to affect your recoil pattern. These do have some cons to it that I don't believe are listed here. Obviously, minus accuracy is not really a thing. They have nerfed these in the past, but for a close range build specifically, this is a really good choice, especially when lengthened is not going to do a ton for you in 20-meter fights. Subsonic, as we talked about, is all right, but not like an obvious choice. And these other ones just aren't all that good. You can get away with using compressed rounds here with no real cons in play, right? So I really do like that. For the rear grip, we are going to go for polymer. Perk 1, tight grip or hard scope. Both of those are great. Hard scope offers less recoil control in general, like it's going to have a larger pattern and a larger deviance in your bullets, but it's going to start working right away, whereas tight grip offers more control, but it doesn't start working right away. So just take that for what it is. Then perk 2, obviously going for fully loaded because pretty much all these other ones suck. You could do on hand for that faster ADS if you wanted to. I don't feel like that's a, a deal breaker by any means. So fully loaded for that max ammo, to me, works just fine. Let's go ahead. Let's throw on Damascus there as we inspect this one. Because with that being said, those are the top 5 close range weapons to be running in Warzone right now. And that's going to wrap things up for today. If you enjoyed the video, let me know by dropping a like on it. And if you're new here or if you have not already subscribed, every day I got you covered with all things going on. News, updates, loadouts, tips. You'll find it all right here. So feel free to hit that sub button and turn on those post notifications. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy. Have an awesome rest of your day. And I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.